Throughout history, free thinkers have outraged the religious with their wacky ideas about the virtues of free speech, reason, and of course, eating babies. Now, God is dying, and it's time to dispose of his remains. From the pits of hell, Satan sends two puppets of the imperialist West and the Zionist Jews against God, Islam, and tiny kittens to bring you their propaganda and conspire for a new world order. This is Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment with Ali Rizvi and Armin Navabi.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Secular Jihadists for a Muslim Enlightenment. My name is Ali Rizvi, and back with me, we're both on the same stream again for, I think, this month. Armin Navabi.
Hello.
Armin, welcome back.
Hi.
Oh, did you see how enthusiastic that was? Have you ever heard him that enthusiastic? This is great. We've been reunited. So we were both, Armin has been gallivanting all around Europe, we were both in Amsterdam together. We were both on the same conference, a Celebrating Dissent conference. And then after that, Armin went over to Berlin, where he visited the Holocaust Memorial and created some controversy over there. But we're gonna save that for the next episode. Right. We're gonna ask anyway. I won't get into that.
No, tell people. Next episode, we're gonna do all the worst things I've ever said and why I said them.
In the next episode, it'll be Armin Navabi in the hot seat.
Okay, good.
Because Armin Navabi, a lot of people, especially on Twitter, actually pretty much only on Twitter, want to see Armin Navabi in the hot seat, and they want to know why. Or first, they want to know why he is a Nazi, and then they want to know why he is anti-Semitic and he hates Jews, and then they also want to know why he is pro-Zionist. So we're going to ask him all of those questions.
Yeah, it's very difficult to consistently be a Zionist and also anti-Semitic at the same time. But I try.
It's a very tough thing. I know.
Yes.
It's like you don't know what to do with your foreskin. You're just like, cut it. No. It's like there's a lot of hesitation marks.
But before you go, I just want to say we were both in Amsterdam, and I'm really sad that I didn't get to spend more time with you in Amsterdam. But I have another speech coming up in Toronto and one in Ottawa, September 22nd and September 23rd. I don't know which. Oh yeah, September 22nd in Ottawa, September 23rd in Toronto. By the way, if anybody is there, please come say hi. I'm hoping I get to see you in Toronto and we can spend more time. We could record something there in Toronto together. Right?
Yeah, it'd be fun, man.
Yeah,
I think, yeah. Cool. So we'll do that. So I'm going to start. Yeah. There's a couple of things more I wanted to say. I just wanted to say that we just got done. Sarah Haider was on HBO. She's on Real Time with Bill Maher.
Oh my God! Yeah, wow.
So Sarah Haider is the executive director of Ex-Muslims in North America.
I haven't watched it, so don't spoil it for me.
I won't say what she said, but she did a really, really good job. And this was a really big thing. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I've probably been waiting for something like this for years because, Bill Maher is a liberal atheist, and what's amazing is he's had on reformers, he's had on conservative sort of ex-Muslims, but he has never had on people who would be his natural allies, like an actual liberal ex-Muslim. And so this was a first. It was with the word ex-Muslims. It's right there on the screen. It was actually... That's
perfect. Just the use of the word ex-Muslim on such a mainstream outlet is so amazing. I think that was a huge win. What Sarah did when it comes to in the step of making leaving Islam and being ex-Muslim normal, right? Just normalizing dissent. I think that was a huge step. Plus the billboards that did, the ex-Muslim of North America is killing it recently. Hey?
They are killing it. Yeah, it's great.
Well, we're going to have Sarah on, right? We're going to have Sarah on in October.
We are having Sarah on, so we've talked about it. She's going to be coming on around sometime early October, and we're going to finalize that date and let you know. So I've been talking to her, and she's going to be back. And she has been on before, so if you want to see the previous episode, you can totally Google it and seek it out.
Yeah. We were looking for, we want to have Sarah on as much as possible, but we need excuses. And now we have so many excuses, both because of the billboards and also because of the Bill Maher thing. So now we can have her back again. All right. Go on.
So I'm going to start with the topic that we're doing today with a comment from one of our audience members here in the live chat, Armin Navabi. He's saying, unfortunately, only Ali Rizvi will host this live stream. Armin was killed by the U.S. government while Naruto running at Area 51. So, but Armin's back from the dead. He's here, and we are talking about actually a topic that we've talked about quite a bit here. Armin is from Iran. Armin was raised in Tehran. He grew up there. He is in touch with a lot of people in Iran right now. You must have seen all the videos and everything that he's posted from there, that people send him from there. So recently, Iran's been in the news, and it's weird. I know it's been covered a lot. I feel like it's not getting a lot of attention because it seems like a pretty precarious situation. So here's a little bit of background. On September 14th, there was a drone and missile attack on Saudi oil facilities. So you know about the Saudi-Iran proxy war. We talked about that a lot. And that attack on Saudi Arabia and their oil facilities cut the output of Saudi's oil production in half and sent markets spinning. Right. So the Trump administration later determined that Iran was responsible for this. Saudi Arabia, according to the Trump administration, said that this was like their 9/11, which is kind of a weird statement. They actually said that. And the thing is, there have been a series of provocations. Most recently in June, where Iran actually shot down a Navy drone, a U.S. Navy drone. And apparently John Bolton, who was his national security advisor, Trump wanted him to retaliate, but he decided not to, because Trump, one of the good things about him, well, it could be good, it could be bad, is that he's not very prone to intervention. It doesn't play well with his space. So you've had all of this stuff. There was an Iran hawk. John Bolton was a national security advisor. This guy has written op-ed talking about why we need to bomb Iran. He was recently fired. Trump sacked him very publicly in a humiliating way. They had a bad breakup. The Iran deal, as you know, has been canceled. Iran has promised an all-out war if there's any kind of attack on Iran. So there's a lot going on. And there's obviously the Israeli element, the Israel-Saudi alliance. They're working together also against Iran. So it's a very complicated situation with a lot of loose ends and things. People are very confused about what's going to happen. It's very unpredictable. Anyway, so that's kind of what we're going to try to unpack today. The recent escalation. Is there going to be a war with Iran? Is the U.S. going to retaliate? It seems like they're thinking about it. We don't know. If they don't retaliate,
I don't
then
think anybody other than Saudi Arabia and the weapon industry, the military industry, and people that are in their pockets like John Bolton. I don't think, and also the MEK. I don't think other than these groups, I don't think anybody wants war. I don't think the United States wants. I don't think the Trump administration wants war. I think they're under pressure to go into war by Saudi Arabia and people like John Bolton.
So Iran has been provoking a lot, right? Like recently, they've been doing that stuff with the tankers, with the British, and everything. So they've been doing a lot of this stuff since the Iran deal tore up. I think they kind of know that nobody wants war.
No,
they also
they don't want war either. But they also know that they need to show. I mean, there's two ways to look at it. It looks like, why are they provoking, given that they don't want to go to war? But the thing is that the other way to look at it is to show how much of a mess they can create if you go to war. So it might be a warning about not going to war, because Iran's capabilities has increased dramatically. Like if I was I can see how nationalism is growing again in Iran recently, because Iran is looking very victorious. I mean, they shot down a U.S. drone. That was a huge source of pride for a lot of people. Like something that was not supposed to be that easily taken down, they took it down, right? And they said, by the way, there was a U.S. plane right next to that drone. And they're like, we could have taken down the plane, by the way. We decided not to, even though you were in our, And the ship, when they took that ship, right, the British ship, they were like, the warning that they give to the, they went and they took it and they prayed on, and they had the Islamic call to prayer on the ship. I mean, they look so strong. So think about it. They took a British ship, they took down a U.S. drone, They're getting no pushback, and now either you could say Iran directly attacks Saudi Arabia in a way that nobody imagined that anybody could get that close. I mean, think about it. Saudi Arabia has spent billions of dollars in defense weaponry for something like for the recent attack that happened on its oil refineries not to happen. Billions of dollars, right? And then the Houthis with a whole bunch of drones that cost like $15,000 each, probably, they managed to like cause chaos. Like how? I mean, even if you say it wasn't Iran directly, because a lot of people are like, you don't know who to trust right now. Even if you say it was the Houthis themselves, the Houthis are an Iranian proxy, right? If you can't, if a bunch of Houthis can do this with $15,000 drones.
So for those who don't know, Houthis are the ones who are fighting in Yemen.
Yeah, but like how much intro do we need to give people? Do people? I'm assuming
I feel like Houthis. You should tell them. But anyway, that's good enough.
Yeah. Okay. So, but Iran's enemies can't seem to beat Iran's proxies. What are the chances that they have against Iran itself? If they can't even defeat, Saudi Arabia has bought more weapons in the past year from the United States, and these are the most significant military deals in history. Like the size of these deals are historically unchallenged, right? Like when it comes to the amount of advanced modern weaponry that Saudi Arabia has bought from the United States, we haven't seen deals this big before, and I mean, at least not as many. And yet, after how many years? It's getting close to 5 years now, fighting with Houthis, which are the Houthis' military power is astronomically lower than Iran's military power, right? And with all that with all the military might, and with all the United States support, after 5 years, Saudi Arabia hasn't managed to not only defeat Houthis in a single battle, the Houthis are now getting the upper hand. So not only you didn't manage to remove the Houthis are now in Saudi territory. Like how humiliating, how embarrassing is that for MBS and Saudi Arabia?
Do you think that there's I know what you're saying. It's a show of strength. They're trying to show the strength. Do you think there's an element of they're doing it because they know they can? Like here's why I think that. It's a really strange situation because the U.S. Trump rips up the Iran deal, so that's gone. That pisses off a lot of people, especially in Iran, their governments and all that. Then after that, recently he fires John Bolton. John Bolton was the guy who said, let's attack Iran. And now, after he fired John Bolton, this whole drone thing happens, and now the U.S. is talking about attacking Iran, which is what John Bolton wanted to do all the time. So, does Iran kind of know? They know that the U.S. is not going to come after them, and they feel like they can get away with anything. So they're being provocative because they're just trying to, because this is their chance. They're like, okay, we know the U.S. isn't going to really come after us, so let's just do all this stuff and do our show. To do what? To show our strength. Like we can do it because it's a chance for them to be...
Okay, but it depends on which attack you're talking about. First of all, when we talk about Iran, there's so many different elements within the Iran, government, right? So we have to, which ones we're talking about, right? Ever since the deal was canceled by Trump, the hardliners have gotten the upper hand. Like, because the reformists, they look ridiculous, honestly. Like, because they were the ones that pushed the deal, and what Trump did was really he really helped the hardliners to show the reformists that you guys trusted the United States. Look how silly you look right now, right? So they even the reformists now have to act like, you know what? We knew that this deal wouldn't have worked, but we had to show they're backtracking, like, because they were selling the nuclear deal to the Iranian people as the best thing that could ever happen to Iran. The whole world is going to open to Iran now. There's going to be trade agreements and everything, right? But once the Trump backed out of the deal, the hardliners tell the Iranian people, like, look, we told you guys you can't trust the United States, and the reformers are like, well, we knew this is going to happen. We just wanted to show the world that you can't trust the United States. Because we did the deal, now the whole world knows how untrustworthy the United States is. And the hardliners are like, bullshit, you guys believed them, you guys thought that, you guys trusted the United States, you shouldn't have. But anyways, the point is that everybody now is backing the hardliners. Even the reformers are like, yeah, okay, fine, tell us what to do. I mean, Khamenei's position is becoming stronger and stronger. Like even though he was already the ultimate decision maker, now there is no challenge to his power, right? Until I don't know what's going to happen when he dies, but right now they are, the IRGC and Khamenei, and they are basically getting everything they want. When it comes to the recent decisions, when it comes to being more aggressive, because first of all, the understanding is that Trump can't go to war, and because he's going to lose the election if he goes to war, right? His base is very, unlike other Republicans, his base is very anti-war.
Well, I mean, remember when he did the Syria strike, which was really sort of like a half-assed kind of Syria strike to show
his base didn't
his entire even with the little minor kind of thing that didn't really do much at all.
Right.
His entire base just lost their shit. They're like, okay, we're quitting Trump now. Of course they didn't, but still, it was a big thing.
But then you have so when it comes to the drone and the ship, they took the ship in response to Iran's ship being taken away as well, right? So that was in tit for tat. The drone strike was such a great PR move for them. Like, you have a very advanced U.S. drone right there, and you just took it out with one shot. Like, they didn't even miss, right? That's just such a powerful way of showing their military might, right? This is and when it comes to the whole new attack on Saudi Arabia, this is not like, this is a show, because a lot of people think like, okay, Iran has control over the Hormuz, what is it called? Tangier, the strip of Hormuz, right? And that's where 20% of all the world's oil goes through there, right? But a lot of people are realizing that Iran has too much influence over how much the world's economy. Given that Iran has control over the strip of Hormuz, it's not just Iran's oil that it has control over, it's Iraq's oil and a lot of Saudi Arabia's oil as well. So people are trying to figure out, like, what can they do so that the oil doesn't go through the strip of Hormuz, so that they're building pipes, pipelines, so that Saudi Arabia and Iraq and everyone else can sell their oil without Iran's permission. So ever since these becoming a major issue, Iran's proxies all of a sudden decided to attack these pipelines. People are like, no, and now nobody imagined this. Nobody imagined Iran or Houthis could get this close to the heart of oil production in Saudi Arabia.
So,
let me just make this clear. The understanding is that, you know what, even if you don't go through the strip of Hormuz, if Iran can't sell its oil, nobody should be able to sell its oil. Because of the new sanctions on Iran is like, okay, we don't get to sell oil. Guess what? Nobody in this region gets to sell oil if we don't get to sell our oil. So the reason why they go at the heart of the oil production is to send this message. Even if it's not through the strip of Hormuz, we're still coming after your oil, and it's working because look, none of the actions that Iran has done has been met with any retaliation.
Sorry, I just want to say, just to the context over here, the attack was 10 drones. There were 10 drones used in the attack on the Aramco, on the Saudi oil facilities,
right,
and nearly 20 missiles. So the 10 drones and 20 missiles. The Houthis came and they said that they claimed responsibility for it. So it obviously seems like, I mean, the Houthis don't have that kind of capability. I mean, 10 drones is that's very, 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 very expensive.
It's not, Ali. It's not. That's the whole point that I'm trying to make. They are defeating $1 billion worth of defense bought by Saudis from the United States with a couple of $1,000s worth of drone equipment. Like
10 drones is that's like hundreds of millions of dollars.
No, not these drones. How much?
No,
hundreds of millions.
It's hundreds of millions of dollars.
No,
like 10 drones. What kind of drones did they use to attack?
Well, the Saudis got some of them, and they're saying they came directly from the north, and they couldn't have come from Houthi. So this, but I don't trust the Saudis. I don't know what they're saying, right? It could have been. They're saying it came directly from Iran. I don't believe. I don't know if I could believe them on that because Saudi Arabia is very interested in to pin everything on Iran, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong, but they're not a good source of information. But even okay, Ali, even if it gets to $100 million, okay, of drone, but which I don't think it was because I think it was a lot cheaper equipment. But $100 million compared to the $70 billion defense deals that was specifically for defending all these oil refineries from this. It was specifically for defending it from this. I think even if it gets to $100 million range, it's like it's a drop in the bucket compared to what.
Yeah,
Saudi
I think you're right. These aren't because I'm thinking of those other drones.
No, these are not. These are really cheap technology. Like, it is so amazing that Iran has mastered the art of asymmetrical warfare. Right, Iran has managed to do all the get all the control that it has in Lebanon right now, in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen. Without using its military. Like, Iran hasn't even begun to use its military, neither the Artesh or the IRGC. It's just like asymmetric warfare, but just these proxies over there, these proxies, just a little bit of spending over here, a little bit over there. It's easy. It's so easy to cause chaos. It's more expensive to maintain order, right? And Iran knows that it just has to show people that whenever it doesn't get its way, it could just mess things up all around the region. So it's trying to show everybody that, you know what, if you want any peace around this area, you have to talk to me, guys. You cannot pressure me. Like, this is what Khamenei actually just recently said in a speech. We have to show them that the maximum pressure. Okay, so think about this, Ali. Think about the game theory that they're playing, right? If they put maximum pressure on you when it comes to sanctions, oil, and everything, and you give in to that, then you're teaching them that the maximum pressure works. Okay?
Yeah.
And they keep you, and then once they get something out of you, then they will put maximum pressure on you again to get something else. So Iran's strategy is, when they put maximum pressure on you when it comes to sanction and everything, you don't budge. You're going to go through a very hard period of, inflation and economic hardship, and people are going to complain in Iran. People are going to protest. They're like, oh, we're hungry. What's happening? Everything is more expensive. You go through that. Because you
write it out.
You write it out because if you write that out, you're teaching the world the lesson that this doesn't work. Don't do this to us again. And not only you write it out, you make every plan that United States or Israel or Saudi Arabia has, you find out cheap and efficient ways to mess with it, to fuck it up, so that the whole world realizes that they have to talk to you. Like, once they give up on the maximum pressure thing, and once that fails, they come and realize, like, okay, we have to recognize Iran's influence in the region, and we have to recognize that without their permission, we don't get to do shit. And we have to, and they want, so the hardliners, they say, we want negotiations with these other countries, but not from a position of weakness. We negotiate when they realize that it's not that United States comes to us and says, this is what we want, and you do this, and if you don't listen to us, there's going to be consequences. The version of negotiations that Iran is the exact opposite of that. Is that we will tell you what you want, and we will tell you the consequences of not listening to us. You know what I mean? So the hardliners think the reformers were always negotiating with the United States from a position of weakness. And they say, now that failed, let us show you how negotiation is done. We'll show go ahead. And they have a lot of examples for that. Like, for example, a lot of people think like, oh, U.S. military might compared to Iran's military might. Why should the United States listen to Iran? But people don't understand that Iran, with a much smaller amount of military might, they have a lot bigger appetite for using them. Like, the United States cannot drag all of its military all the way to the Middle East. Like, every time it does, first of all, it has to go through a lot of political damage. It has a political cost, election cost. The amount of money that is spent to do warfare all the way over there is much less than the military spending that Iran has to do to cause chaos in right back door. And again, the nature of what the United States needs to do is to keep peace, and keeping peace and stability is always much more expensive than causing chaos. So Iran, even though with much smaller military might, gets to get its way, and it's being very strategic, and it's playing these games with a much higher long-term horizon in mind, rather than, again, so if you think about United States politics, it has to always think about the next election, 4 years down the road, 2 years down the road. So it's very difficult to make long-term planning. Iran, because it has a fake democracy, it has like this center, which is the Rahbari, the supreme religious leader that doesn't change. It can afford to make more longer term strategic planning, and that's why it ends up being, again, these people are not idiots. Neither the Iranian politicians or American politicians are idiots. They're just working with what they have. And again, Iran gets forced to play the longer game. And again, look at Afghanistan, right? United States, with all its military might, hasn't been able to defeat the Taliban. And now they're negotiating with Taliban. They always said, we're never going to negotiate with Taliban because Talibans are terrorists and we don't talk to terrorists, right? We don't negotiate with terrorists. Now they're negotiating with Taliban. I mean, they're almost dead. Taliban could have screwed themselves over by doing one last attack right before the negotiations. But they were about to negotiate with Taliban because they realized that they cannot ignore Taliban. The Taliban has too much influence, too much control over Afghanistan. You cannot go around Taliban. You have to talk to them.
The U.S., the other thing is the U.S. has been in there. This is the longest war that the U.S. has been in. So there are people who were born when the Afghanistan war started are at voting age now. So they're 18 today. So it's actually pretty amazing.
So, but let me make my point with the Taliban. My point with regards to Taliban is that if United States has given up on defeating Taliban, think about the Taliban compared to Iran. The Taliban's military power compared to Iran's military power. Taliban is nothing compared to Iran's military power. So if you think that United States should be able to defeat Iran easily, they haven't even been able to defeat the Taliban that easily. What are the chances that they have against Iran? Again, I don't want to come off as an Iran apologist. I'm not. These are unfortunate things that I'm saying about Iran. I'm not defending Iran. I know there are better ways in defeating the Islamic Republic of Iran. Again, I keep using Iran and the Islamic Republic interchangeably, and that pisses off a lot of people. I'm not talking about Iran. I'm talking about Iran's government, the Islamic Republic, and again, they are a lot more strategic. They have a lot more proxies all over the Middle East. At least the Taliban is only in Afghanistan, so the Taliban doesn't have the threat that Iran could threaten United States and Saudi Arabia and Israel by all this proxy all around. The Taliban doesn't even have that, and they still managed to not be defeated by United States.
Yeah.
So go on. Sorry.
Yeah, no. So I want to ask you actually a couple of things, and eventually I want to ask you about what's going on with how Israel fits into all of this, with all the political instability there, whether Iran's taking advantage of it. So we'll get into that as well. But I want to ask you actually what you think of Trump's approach on all of this with the U.S. So back in June when they shot down the Navy drone and all that, Trump had this tweet, and I really want to read this out. Okay, so this was his tweet. It was in all caps. Okay, quote, "To Iranian President Rouhani, never ever threaten the United States again, or you will suffer the consequences the likes of which few throughout history have ever suffered before. We are no longer a country that will stand for your demented words of violence and death. Be cautious." So first he said that back then. Now, with the whole attack on Saudi Arabia, on September 15th, he tweeted this, quote, "Saudi Arabia oil supply was attacked. There is reason to believe that we know the culprit. We are locked and loaded, depending on verification. but are waiting to hear from the kingdom as to who they believe was the cause of this attack and under what terms we should proceed. He said
that looked really bad, by the way. A lot of people are like, well, really, United States is waiting for orders from Saudi Arabia before they could make an attack. Like, this is...
it looked
really
bad. Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is that he also said it's locked and loaded. You'll suffer the consequences, the likes of which you've never seen before. All of this, he's been saying all of these things, but now there is reason to believe. I mean, there's reason to believe he's not going to do anything. I don't think there's going to be any.
And if he doesn't do anything,
but what message does that send to Iran? That makes Iran even. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So think about this. When Trump first got rid of the nuclear deal, they came out and said, like, we have a list of conditions for Iran to come back to the negotiating table, and they could call us anytime, and these are I think they had a list 12 or something, and Iran were like, yeah, we're not even gonna call you, right? Like Iran was like, not only we're not gonna give in to these conditions, we have conditions for you if you ever want to come back to the deal. If you ever want to,
of course they can say that,
right?
They could...
So Trump was like waiting for Iran to call them, and they didn't call. And then Trump went back and they're like, you know what? I'll talk to you guys without any conditions, no conditions.
Yeah, he said that. So and then Iran, he denied it.
No,
he denied it later.
But imagine how strong Iran is looking. Like Iran, like, we didn't call them, and now they're desperate. They're saying, like, they're now telling us that we're going to talk to you with no conditions, and Iran still didn't call. Like, no, we're not gonna. Even with no conditions, we're not gonna come. We have conditions for you. Like, Iran is looking so fucking strong, and it's so sad that they don't even have to try. Like, Iran is like playing with amateurs. Like, looking at what Saudi Arabia is doing and what United States is doing, Iran is like, we don't even have to hire people to advise us on what to do, because everything they're doing is just making them look more and more in control of all over the Middle East. And this is why Saudi Arabia is panicking. You mentioned Aramco, right?
Yeah.
Imagine Aramco, they were trying to sell it. How much they were trying to sell? Okay, so Aramco is like the private oil company that Saudi Arabia...
Arab American Oil, yeah. That's the thing that was bombed, yeah.
Yeah, so Saudi Arabia is running out of money, okay? They're running out of money. They desperately need to diversify their economy. Things are not looking good, okay?
Yeah, because people aren't dependent on their oil anymore. So that's why you have MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who's got his vision, that program.
Vision. And
the 2030 vision, getting foreign investment, opening movie theaters,
right.
trying to...
So one of the most important parts of that vision was the sale of Aramco, so that a percentage of it, so that they could make enough money to build that whole, like, the city that they were trying to build and everything like that, right? And they had, like, what was the valuation? Like $1.something trillion. It was a crazy, stupid evaluation that everybody was, like, looking at it like, yeah, no, good luck. But so they delayed the IPO because they're like, okay, this is not the valuation that we want, and also because the whole world are like, if you want an IPO, you need to open your books. And they have so much dirty laundry in that company that they probably never want to have anything about their financials going public, right? But they had to delay it. But now, because of all these attacks and the instability in the region, all this risk needs to be... I don't know if people understand how evaluation of a company works, but you don't just look at how much money is making, right? So, first of all, oil prices are not where Saudi Arabia wants it to be when it comes to selling Aramco, right? That really already hurts the valuation of it. But also, another thing that now you have to factor in is the risk, right? When you discount your predicted future cash flow, the way you discount it and value a company and try to figure out how much a company is valued today, the discount rate is influenced by the risk. It's heavily influenced by risk, right? So the higher the risk is, the more your company's valuation is going to get discounted by a huge margin, right? Even if oil prices are the same, and even if you could guarantee, like, look, listen, Saudi Arabia is like, look, we have lots of reserves, oil reserves. We have plenty of oil reserves, specifically for this. The market is already oversupplied with oil. Don't worry about this. This attack is not going to mess with supplies of oil. Please, please, please don't panic. And you can see the oil prices went up by 20%, but it came back down pretty shortly after, because the market always overreacts, and they look at it and they look at, okay, there's oversupply of oil, we overreacted, the price went down back right away. So that's not going to impact the valuation that much. What is going to impact the valuation is the risk factor. When you add the risk factor, Aramco is going to become way more, whatever the price they had for it a week ago, today is much lower. And this is really scary for Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, unlike Iran, doesn't have that ideological control. Like, so Iran, for example, when it comes to its proxies all over the Middle East, it doesn't just rely on money. These are people that will die for Khamenei, right? When it comes to Hashd Sharbi in Iraq, when it comes to Hezbollah in Lebanon, when it comes to the Houthis, these are people that are ideologically aligned with the Vilayat al-Faqih in Iran. But when it comes to the Saudis, they don't have devout followers around the Middle East. They only have money, right? So whatever, that's all they have. It's money. So whatever military they might have, they don't have ideological support. They don't have any strategy. They only have money. And that hasn't gotten them far at all. Like, they keep spending on weapons and they still lose. But now they're even going to lose that. They're not even going to have money anymore. This is why Turkey, I think, is moving in to become the powerhouse when it comes to Sunni influence. Because Saudi Arabia has fucked up so badly, and I don't know what's going to happen to them in the next 20 years, but they're going to become weaker and weaker as we go. And I think Turkey is trying to come in and filling that gap by becoming the main Sunni, bring back the Ottoman Empire, and become the main Sunni influence. Iran will be the main Shia influence around the Middle East, and Turkey could be the main Sunni influence around the Middle East. But
that's so sad, because like, if it's just sad, because Turkey was really the one sort of parliamentary democracy,
right,
secular. I mean, in the 80s, I remember growing up, and a lot of people at the school I went to in Riyadh were Turkish, and I used to talk to these kids, and these kids, like in 8th and 9th grade, I'd be like, "Are you Shia or Sunni?" And they had no fucking idea.
Yeah.
A lot of them, they didn't even know. They're like, I don't really know what I am,
right?
Because it was so different. It was so secular, and it's just so unfortunate that Turkey is now going to replace the one place that's now going to replace Saudi Arabia. But yeah, I mean, that'll still take a long time, though.
Yeah, well, actually, I was in Germany, as you mentioned, and most of the mosques in Germany are funded by Turkey.
Right.
So I think, like, this is one thing that Turkey is learning from Iran, because what Saudi Arabia did is, after the 1979 Islamic Revolution, Saudi Arabia tried to copy Iran when it comes to spreading its influence all everywhere, and they just built madrasas everywhere, including in Pakistan, and they spread Wahhabism, which eventually led to the birth of Al Qaeda and ISIS, all these madrasas everywhere, and spreading Wahhabism. But they didn't have any control over all these Wahhabis. The Wahhabis were not loyal to the Saudi, to the House of Saud. When Iran spread its proxies everywhere, the people that they managed to, the proxies that they managed to create, were very loyal to Khamenei, to the Vilayat Faqih in Iran. So I think what Turkey is now doing, actually, one thing that Iran is doing, you can see, like, this Muharram, Ashura came and went, right? So you can see in most major cities here in Vancouver, in Toronto, in London, and Berlin, Shias were in the streets for Hussein. They were doing the Sinazani, right? The number of Shias and Iran is, and most of these are Iranian funded. But Iran is showing that even in Western countries, in major Western cities, it's able to mobilize Shias. When people come out in mass numbers in Vancouver to do the Muharram ceremonies for Hussein, that's not just like, oh, Shias getting together, oh, Shias having a religious ceremony. That's Iran showing the fact that it could, because these Shias were here in Vancouver before, but now they're coming out in big numbers together, and like, what's happening now? Iran is demonstrating its ability to mobilize Shias, not just that the Shias exist in Vancouver, but the fact that the Shias are connected to Iran, and the fact that Iran is able to get them into the streets in large numbers. By the way, this is something that we're trying to do at Atheist Republic, to get people in the streets, but the Shias are killing us in this. Like, this is that
the Shias. Well, the Shias, what you guys need to do on Atheist Republic is you have to do what the Shias do on Ashura. We've seen those fucking pictures, like when they're like, they've got razor blades cutting their scalps open, there's blood all over their faces. That is what they're doing to themselves. So anybody, you look at that, you're like, holy shit, these people, this is what they're doing to themselves. What the fuck are they going to do to us?
To be fair though, Iran doesn't allow that. The Shirazi imams allow the blood,
I know.
But okay, Iran
they allow the bruising. They don't allow the thing. Yeah. But anyway, I'm half joking.
But the strategy is very interesting, right? So you go and you build a layer of Shiism in an area, or you just go find the Shias in an area, and then you get them organized. It's all just religious stuff. It has nothing with politics. You just go out and do the Hussein thing and all that, and then it's like a pyramid. It's like a sales funnel. You have your Shia base, and then you have your mobilized Shia base, and then you have the Shia base that celebrates Iran and the Vilayat Faqih, and then you have your hardcore activists in every city, right?
Well, Iran is brilliant.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was saying Iran is brilliant at making the Shias look stronger than the Sunnis. It is, and this is why I think that they're able to. What they want to do is they want people to convert. They want these pockets of Shiism, like Aramco, that whole place in eastern Saudi Arabia, where the attacks happened. I mean, that's where a lot of the Shia concentration in Saudi Arabia is. Whatever Saudi Shias there are, they're on that east coast. They're in the Al Khobar, the Dammam, and Tehran. Those sort of triplet cities over there. In Yemen, the Houthis, those are the Shias. So as you're saying, what they do is they organize the minority Shias in these places. So
but not just in these places. Now they're doing it in Western countries as well. Imagine Iran is learning that Iran had such a huge success in having Shia pockets all over the Middle East supporting them, and now they're trying to do that in Western countries as well. Right?
And a lot of it is, there's also this thing that Iran is trying to show that the Arab leaders are weak, that they can't stand up to Israel. So what they do is, Iran is a big supporter of Hamas. Hamas is interesting because Hamas is like hardcore Sunni branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. They're not into the whole Shia thing, but they actually trust Iran a lot more for their support than they do any other Sunni country, because all the Sunni countries have fucked them over. Now, the people who are Sunnis in these countries, right, the Sunni Arabs, they hate Israel a lot. Like they're very, very anti-Israel. So when they see Iran doing this, they're like, well, the Shia leaders are doing this, Iranian leaders are doing this. Why can't our leaders do it? Or why are our leaders so weak? So that's also a message that Iran benefits from a lot, and also plays into the Persian-Arab sort of rivalry,
right.
Where that makes it look good. So it's really interesting the way that Iran uses both rhetoric and these sort of strategic influence and holding. I mean, it looked strong in the 2006 war with Israel, the Hezbollah war with Israel. I mean, Hezbollah is Iran's Arab militant arm, right?
Yeah.
Doing that, I mean, Hezbollah actually held their own. That was one of the most successful wars against Israel. It was crazy.
Yeah, so So Saudi Arabia wants to attack. Okay, Saudi Arabia wants to attack Iran, and like Iran is like, good luck. You can't even beat my proxies, my Houthi proxies. Israel wants to go to war with Iran. Iran is like, yeah, good luck. You can't even beat my Hezbollah. Proxy. Right? Hezbollah is my proxy. You can't even defeat that. What are the chances you have against me? Full on, right? And that's a good point.
No, and now beyond that, right? Beyond the Israel thing, beyond Saudi Arabia, now you have Trump, and do you guys remember, this is for the audience, everybody listening, do you remember how terrible it looked when Obama drew that red line for Syria, that if they use chemical weapons, we're going to do something? And then he wussed out of it, and he backed out, and he just said, okay, listen, Russia's going to take their thing. We'll just trust Russia with it.
Right.
Like, that was his solution. And that backed him out. That helped him back out of the whole red line thing. Today, what Trump is doing now, with Iran is the same thing that the Obama administration was doing. The only problem is the Obama administration actually did it more successfully. So Trump has it's rejected. He has actually, his advisors advised him to attack Iran. He's completely rejected that because it doesn't play with his base. His political allies have tried to do it. The countries like Saudi Arabia, Israel have been like urging Trump to get together and attack Iran. He's refused them. Okay, he is now, what he's doing is he's increasing sanctions. He wants to form a global coalition, like UN style. He wants to do covert operations like Obama did in Syria. He's doing all of the stuff that he denounced the previous administration of doing, but he has ripped up the Iran deal. And so now if he's, it's just, and with all those threats, if you take all of this and you take it in the context of all of those Twitter threats he did, locked and loaded, consequences that have never been seen before in history, it makes Trump and the U.S., it makes, actually, forget about Trump, it makes the entire U.S. just look like idiots in the hands of Iran. So it's not just Saudi Arabia, it's not just Israel. There's the fact that Iran is getting away with all of this stuff over and over and over again. That's what I'm saying, Armin. I feel like they're doing it because they know they can get away with it. They know that there's going to be no retaliation. They'll get sanctions, they get all that, but this is their opportunity to show strength because they know that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, but
the Trump's base doesn't want it. Trump ran on the whole premise of I'm not going to get into any more wars
the problem
in the Middle East.
The situation with Trump is that he's in a very difficult position because he knows that he can't go to war, but he also can't look weak, right? So what do you do? What do you do if when Iran takes down your drone, when their proxies is attacking your allies, Saudi Arabia, and in the heart of its oil production? Like, I honestly, nobody saw this coming. Like, this close, this you couldn't find a more sensitive, target to cause the most amount of fear. Like, this is amazing success for Iran's proxies, right? And they took a ship, and there's no people are like, why is Iran getting away with all of this? Why are we not retaliating? Like, so Trump wants to look strong, like the Trump administration. There needs to be some consequences to Iran, but not war. But the thing is that if it's not war, Iran has proven to be able to shake off any other kind of retaliation. Like the sanctions, Iran, like, yeah, bring it on. I don't care. It's not like they care about their people, right? It's not like people dying from hunger or people not being able to afford their food or medicine. It's not like the Iranian government gives a shit about that. You're not hurting them. The sanctions is actually helping the IRGC, right? Because it's giving them monopoly over different industries. So why would the sanctions not going to do anything? In fact, if anything, it made Iran closer to China and Russia. It helped them build stronger bonds with them. What are you going to do? Are you going to attack? If you're going to attack, that's a declaration of war. And that's going to mess up with the elections. So I don't know. What would you do if you were Trump right now?
I mean, I don't know. Like, what are you going to do?
I mean, they're kind of running out of options.
Just 3 presidents have gone around, and Iran has just been benefiting. So George W. Bush did the Iraq War, and Iran was just chilling. They're like, oh my God, we've had a problem with Saddam for a very long time. 65% of Iraq is Shia. If you remove Saddam, you bring in democracy. We have a Shia majority state with a Shia government, and we have a new ally. So we're just going to shut up, and we're going to sit here and just kind of let this happen. And they did not. Like Muqtada Sadr, remember that guy? He was going out and he was like going against the U.S. And then all of these Ayatollahs talked to him, and then he piped down too. He's like, okay, whatever,
But what would you do right now? You have 3 options when it comes to Iran. You either keep increasing the sanctions, which doesn't work. You either go out and attack Iran, which is like, it's going to be a fucking nightmare, by the way. If we go, I'll let you know why it's going to be a nightmare. But the other option is to go back and be like, okay, fine, let's do the deal. Let's renegotiate on the deal that I just threw out.
I think that's what's going to happen.
But that's what's gonna happen. But that's gonna make Iran look so good. Like Iran is gonna require better. Like it's gonna require a deal that was better than before.
I think that's what's gonna. That's the only, because like you said, the sanctions don't help, and the sanctions are another thing that we're not talking about, or maybe you mentioned it and I missed it. But another thing we're not talking about is the Russia and China backing Iran, like the Russia, China, India, Iran, like that whole alliance. I mean, that's absolutely a factor. Like that's a massive factor. So they have a buffer. I mean, they have a safety net over there. So they don't really necessarily, like, that's another reason that the sanctions and all these things are not going to harm them too much.
Right.
Right. Even though they did harm them during the Obama administration, but now Iran's in a much better situation. The other thing is, I feel like Trump is going to go back and he's going to have to say, well, we're going to come up with a better deal. We did a shitty deal. We're going to make a better deal.
Yeah.
And the moment he says that, Iran is going to be in a position like, oh, we can make this guy look like a complete idiot now.
Yeah,
it's going to be a much worse. That Iran deal, a deal is something, especially between two powers that are hostile to each other, that requires significant compromises on either side. And the definition of a compromise, you know what they say? Larry David, and we'll quote Larry David, he says, marriage is based on compromising, and the definition of a compromise is a situation where each side is 50% unhappy.
Right.
Okay? That is what a compromise is. That's what a deal is between two hostile powers. Of course, anybody could take the Iran deal that John Kerry and all these guys did and make it look like it was weak, because it was weak. There were compromises involved. But now in this situation,
it's going to be worse.
Where Iran is even stronger. Like, with Bush, Iran got strengthened after the Iraq War. With Obama, Iran got strengthened. And now with Trump, Iran's getting strengthened even more. And now they're making a show of it. They don't even care anymore.
Right.
Right. So
Iran has managed to figure out how much it could attack without the world thinking that we need to retaliate, right? So Iran knows that as long as it doesn't use any of its own military to attack U.S. or Saudi and Israeli interests, there would not be war, right? That's why Iran always attacks through proxies, because it wants to give United States the excuse to stay out, because Iran knows. See, this is they're like communicating with each other. They kind of understand each other as well, right? Iran knows that United States doesn't want to go to war, and Iran doesn't want to go to war. So Iran knows that for Trump to be able to not to go to war, all he has to do is just attack using proxies rather than attack directly. But let me just give you the situation of what will happen if there is a war.
Yeah.
I think if there is a war, I think there's two situations. Either there's going to be a small
surgical strike.
Yeah, something that will die down, like Trump will attack and Iran will retaliate somewhere else, and at some point they both chill, and then they will like, okay, fine, we both can go to our people and say like we had the upper hand and we won, and it will be over. But if you're talking about an all-out war, and war that is just like kind of like a removal of Saddam kind of situation for United States to go all in, and this is like guns blazing, and it just going to just remove this government, regime change, and all of that. Some people are waiting for something like that, and even a lot of people in Iran are hoping for something like that. But people don't understand. When you remove all the shit that the world has to deal with after Saddam was removed, right? All the chaos, 10 years of chaos in Iraq, Arab Spring, the rise of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, all of that we're still having to deal with today after Saddam was removed. 9/11, was also, something that, you could see something so small that eventually led into Saddam and Taliban being removed and all of that. But small decisions like this all of a sudden could change things on the ground in a way that is unrecognizable within 5 years. But what I'm saying is that if you do the same thing that you did with Iran, if you remove like Khamenei the way you remove Saddam, the consequences of that is going to be astronomically higher compared to what you saw, what happened after Saddam. I mean, think about just ISIS and Al Qaeda and how much shit the whole world had to deal with because of them, and how many governments changed because of that, and all the immigration crisis. Imagine all of that, but instead of the Wahhabis, which the Wahhabi ideology and the people that follow ISIS or Al Qaeda mentality, think about the Shias. Think about the Shia version of Al Qaeda, or a Shia version of ISIS, where they are a lot more well funded. They have a lot more weapons. They are a lot more connected with each other. They are a lot more united.
They're more sophisticated too.
They're more sophisticated. They're a lot more organized. So basically, a Shia version of ISIS that is much stronger, much more spread around the Middle East, and much more willing to, sacrifice themselves for a greater cause. Again, we're talking millions now. Like how many ISIS members do we have at its peak? At its peak,
tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands.
The exact numbers. Yeah.
Okay, think about something like that, but in millions. Millions, and much better trained and much more organized and much more connected all around the Middle East. So that would be a different version of ISIS. So instead of having a Shia state, you're gonna have a Shia terrorist group that is gonna cause chaos, not just in the Middle East, but to the whole world for I don't know how many decades. If you remove her. Another problem you're going to have, think about the immigration crisis that we had coming out of Syria and how much Europe has changed. The politics in Europe has changed. Governments have changed. The rise of the alt-right because of the immigration and all of that because of the Syrians coming in masses to European countries. Imagine that, again, times I don't know how many, times 10. You're going to have another immigration crisis before this one is even over, right? So, that's what you're going to deal with if you want to go to all-out war with Iran. I don't think Europe could survive that. I don't think United States will be able to. I mean, United States is already giving its world power label away slowly because of all of this. But imagine how much more that's going to be accelerated if you do something like that.
So there's another option, Armin, that apparently has been done as well. Trump has actually done. So one thing he's talked about is doing a cyber attack on Iran. Okay, so apparently after the June thing when they shot down the drone, Trump did authorize a cyber attack. And the cyber attack, basically, what it did was it messed with, or it stopped Iran's capability to target these ships, right? The oil tankers.
For what? For 2 days?
No. It actually, for 2 months later, for another 2 months, they were struggling to get their computers back online.
No, but but that was the 2 months that they managed to capture another ship. They did that in that 2 months.
So. But the point is that that's what he's doing. And now he's talking about doing another cyber attack.
No, but that's like a slap on the hand. That's like nothing.
It is a slap on the hand. It's just an option. I'm just saying that's another thing they could do.
See, what Trump needs to do something that is not really much of an attack, but could go back to his base and be like, we really showed them. Like, we really fucked them up. Right? It needs to be mild enough for it not to be an attack where they go into all-out war with Iran, but it also needs to be strong enough for Trump to be able to go to his base and be like, yeah, we really showed them. Okay,
nobody's gonna fall for it. People, when he did that to Syria,
have you met Trump's base? They will fall for it.
Yeah, well, that's why they voted for him.
Right.
But the thing is, but they fell for. Look, they fell. The Syria thing, when that happened, they fell for it. They thought it was a really big thing and he shouldn't have done it. Even though the Syria thing was so minute and so surgical, it was a slap on the wrist. It was pre-planned.
So yeah, it cannot be a military attack. That's what they're sensitive to. It needs to be something that they can say that we push back against Iran, but it cannot be military because the base doesn't like that. The base doesn't like Trump's base doesn't like Trump dropping bombs anywhere, right?
Yeah.
So that's why maybe they're looking into cyber attacks and stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see this.
The problem is that the people that do want war, like the John Bolton types, or some other people that are influenced by the military industry or by the MEK or by Saudi lobbyists, what they want is that they know that the Trump administration wants to play push this way close to the limit of not actually going to war, but they're getting very close. And they're hoping that while you're getting that close to pushing back against Iran but not going to war, they could be at those moments, maybe a mistake could happen, or some miscommunication happens, or all of a sudden things are so tense that you have, maybe they have an influence over this general or that person, that somebody pulls the trigger somewhere. These boats get captured. All of a sudden, you want to go save the both, American soldiers that are being defeated. There's something that happens. Somebody makes a mistake somewhere that pushes one country to go into war. That's what they're banking on, because they know that the Trump administration doesn't want to go to war and Iran doesn't want to go to war. There's people on Iran's side that do want to go to war, and there are people on the United States side that do want to go to war. And they're hoping that there's somehow they could work with each other, even though they're enemies, that pushes their country into an all-out war. These key moments that, the news, all of a sudden, there's headline news, something happens, everything is tense, communication is not happening efficiently, and they're trying to step in at that moment and make something happen that, So people need to be careful. People that don't want to have war, they need to be very careful about how close they're getting to that situation. You go ahead. I have something else I want to mention, but I'll go.
I'm just saying. I kind of want to. I want to see a world war in my lifetime, man. Like our previous generation, everybody saw a fucking world war. You hear about it so much, and there's all these movies about it and stuff. I've never seen one. We should see one too.
No, thank you.
Let's see what it's like.
No,
yeah, really? You don't want?
No,
I'm surprised you don't share my sentiment, Armin. But anyway, so let's move on to this. We've talked about the options. We don't think that there's going to be a war with Iran. It just doesn't seem like
there might be, but not on purpose. Again, I think if it does happen, it's because somebody that is pro-war managed to take really good advantage. Really took advantage of one of these key high tense situations. I think those are the only times that if somebody manages to turn that into war, then we're going to go to war. But it's
unlikely, though.
It's unlikely, but I think if it does happen, that's going to be how it happens. But go on, sorry.
So let's talk about the Israel factor. So and then there were some people here also saying that can we talk about Israel? So Israel is in a situation right now where Benjamin Netanyahu, who's always been a very, very sort of bomb Iran now kind of guy. He's been pushing for it for a very long time. He's been talking about since 1996 or something. He's been talking about how Iran will have a nuclear weapon in the next 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. So he's been warning about it. He's been pushing like every U.S. administration. He was very, very happy with Trump because with Trump, he thought that he actually had somebody who was willing to go after Iran in that same way. So he's always wanted to. At least his rhetoric has been about his rhetoric.
His rhetoric. He doesn't.
His rhetoric has been about bombing Iran, and like Iran's rhetoric has been about wiping Israel off the map, and all that stuff.
Right.
So now you have the situation where Netanyahu was in a corruption scandal, got in a little bit of trouble, went and he had this election, couldn't form a coalition for majority, and the first time ever in Israeli history, they had to do the election over again. The election's gone over again. I don't know if they have confirmed results yet, but it really looks like the other guy, Benny Gantz, is going to win. Benny Gantz doesn't really have much of a different foreign policy than Netanyahu did, especially when it comes to his approach towards Iran. But there is political instability in Israel. So there's a lot of stuff going on. People aren't sure what's going to happen. They're dealing with a lot of sort of internal issues. Iran seems to be. I mean, it obviously helps Iran because it's something for them to take advantage of.
Well, I
But
mean,
Israel.
yeah, I
Sorry,
mean,
go ahead.
we shouldn't say Israel. We should say Netanyahu, because Israel, a lot of people in the Israel's intelligence, agencies and stuff, they know that a war with Iran is a really bad idea for Israel. They know that. The thing
Mm,
is that Netanyahu, it's not like Netanyahu gives a shit about Israel. Netanyahu just right now, his main priority is to stay out of prison. So
yeah,
whatever happens to Israel, it doesn't matter because to Netanyahu, a war with Iran is a good idea because the more people are scared, the more people worry about security issues in Israel, the more they're probably going to vote, you know, for his party, right? And his intentions are mostly self-centered. He just wants to, the more the terrorist situation, the more intense it is, the more they're being attacked, the more fear they have from Iran, the better it is for Netanyahu. So that's just for him, not for Israel. But most
yeah.
people, I think people that most of the people behind the scenes that do military strat, come up with what actually makes Israel safe. They know that a war with Iran is actually a very, very, very horrible idea. By the way, we just got a super chat. Do you want to read that?
We did, yeah. So it's from Tea with Sue, Laredo Schindler, and they're saying just waking up for work in NJ, so I guess New Jersey. Yesterday, my boss said we need a war to fix the economy. Love listening to you guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you for
thank you
the
for the super chat. Yeah,
yeah,
I don't know
and
what your boss
and
is thinking, but okay.
we're glad you enjoy the show. We really
Yeah.
appreciate it. But I mean, this is so that's the thing. Do we need a war to fix the economy? Is that still a thing?
No.
Because I remember they had the whole military-industrial complex, and the war fix the economy. I think that things have changed over the last few decades
Well, let's
when
not
it
get
comes to
into it.
that.
I mean, I don't think so. I mean, we already saw the Iraq war, what that did to U.S.'s economy, right?
What did it do?
Well, I mean, the amount of debt the United States is in. I mean, the only industry that benefits from it is the
Yeah, oh
military.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I thought you were saying that it benefited the U.S.
No, no, no.
economy.
I'm saying it's the
I'm saying that
opposite. It's the
it's the
opposite.
opposite. I agree with you. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Because there was a time when it did that wasn't the case, and but I think that now countries tend to do better. And the biggest sign of this was really at the time the European Union was forming and the euro became a currency. That time there were political hotspots. I mean, NATO went in and they fixed the whole Yugoslavia situation with Serbia, Croatia, all that stuff.
Right.
So they needed to do it because now that at this point, like war and political instability is actually your economy takes a hit. The global economy
Right.
takes a hit. So these sort of international economic relationships between countries are actually dependent on
Well, it does.
the exact opposite of
It
war.
does
Yeah.
more than that. What it does is that it makes the military industry so rich and powerful. So here's the thing. It's kind of like a chain reaction. So you go to war. You go to very expensive wars, and through this very expensive wars, the military industry in your country becomes very rich. And when they become very rich, they become more influential. They can have more lobbying power in your politics. And because now they have more lobbying power in your politics, it's easier for you to go to war compared to before. So not only makes them not only it has a lot of cost to the taxpayer, because now you have a very influential military industry. It it makes it more likely for it to happen again next time because it's in their best interest, and now they have a lot of politicians in their pockets, right? But
Hmm.
I mean, again, this is not conspiracy theories. These are proven. The
Yeah.
influence of lobbyists on politics is proven by so many different kinds of research. But
Yeah.
I do want to touch on something that you mentioned in regards to the different narratives that Iran uses um, with different audiences, and I
Hmm.
think the three main one that is working for them with the three different audiences is to either use the Shia narrative or to the anti-Israel narrative or the nationalist narrative, right? And the interesting thing is that these, for some people, all three of these works at the same time. So if you like draw these circles, you can see that there are places where they merge. So when it comes to Iran's influence outside of Iran, the Shia narrative works perfectly, right? It's just using the Shia ideology and the Shia stories and the Shia mythology and the Shia narratives and the whole victimhood of Hussein and stuff has worked wonders outside of Iran for influence, right? Among the Shia population outside of Iran. When it comes to Muslims that are not Shia, when it comes to the Sunni population, Iran uses the anti-Israeli and the pro-Palestinian narrative to gain influence, right? And the more and more Arab countries abandon the Palestinians, the stronger Iran's pro-Palestinian and anti-Israeli narrative has worked for it as one of the only champions of Palestinian people. So if you're not Shia and Iran wants to sell itself to you as a Muslim that has no sympathy towards Shia ideology, then Iran's marketing on you would be the fact that Iran stands with the Palestinian people against Israel. And this is something that Turkey is working on as well, right? But Iran has managed to milk the Palestinian cause more than any other country. So you have the Shia narrative, one, the anti-Israeli narrative as a marketing outside. When it comes to inside Iran, what Iran does poorly is focusing on the Shia narrative, right? What it has recently realized and is doing more is by focusing on, I mean, this is, when I say recently, I'm talking in the past 40 years, right? If you look at the evolution of Iran trying to sell itself to its people in Iran, it originally started with completely a Shia Islamic narrative, zero nationalism. With the Iran-Iraq war, they realized they have to use nationalism a little bit. But now what you're noticing is that they are more and more relying on nationalism. They used to be very sensitive, they used to be more Islam focused, more Shia focused than nationalism. They even tried to merge these two as the same thing by making Iran a holy land that is chosen by God for Imam Zaman to come back. But they realize that this is nationalism alone is something that they need to use if they want to play on the Iranian people that are not very religious. The thing is that this whole hijab, the mandatory hijab, the freedoms that people don't have, going to stadiums, women not being able to do this or do that, arresting people because they're having fun. That is Iran's Achilles heel, right? And that is the one place they're not being strategic, right? There are a lot of powerful people in Iran that know that this is the weakness. That when it comes to it internally, most people in Iran don't give a shit about Palestine. They think that focusing on Palestine and trying to save the Palestinian people is taking Iran's resources away out of Iran when Iranian people need it the most, and taking it and doing empire building somewhere else. They think this whole Shia crescent thing is also Iran meddling in other places rather than fixing things at home, right? So those two narratives don't work in Iran. There is still a lot of support for these narratives. I would say maybe something between 10 million to 20 million. 20 million being very optimistic towards the government. But you're talking a country of 80 million people. If only 10 million people are liking, want a heavy-handed Shia regime that tells people how to behave Islamically and to wear the hijab, 10 million, even though it's a big number, is still not the majority of the country. So you can't rely on those two other narratives to win support. And again, you have to understand that if people in Iran are unhappy with their government, strategically this hurts the government outside of Iran. Because the whole idea of Iran being a Shia heaven, where Shias outside of Iran look at it again. Hashtag not all Shias, okay? I know there's going to be some angry Shia like, oh, I'm a Shia. I don't think Iranian government doesn't represent Shias. Yeah, I know, okay? But they're still the religious authorities in Iran are still the number one, the strongest source of Shia authority everywhere in the world. Even if they're not not every single Shia agrees with them, they're still the strongest, right? So, but the thing is that, and they're trying to become stronger. They're trying to, I met like Shia's non-hijabi Shia woman in London that had like the Zulfaqar necklace, and they love Iran. They think Iran is like the best, is heaven on earth, just because they're Shia, and that Iran needs to sell that image to Shias outside of Iran for its branding to work and for it to be able to spread its influence and increase its proxy power, right? But when Shias outside of Iran see women or in Iran coming out in the streets and taking off their hijab and talking about being oppressed by a Shia government, it loses that image. Iran loses its branding power. When Iran tries to pretend to be the voice of the oppressed all around the Islamic world, and all of a sudden people come in the streets in Iran and say, well, we are oppressed by this regime, that really hurts your selling power. And that's why Iran, if Iran is being strategic, the way they have to address that is by, again, I'm hoping they're not this strategic, because this will make them stronger, but they need to chill down with the Islam narrative at home. They need to use, the most strategic thing to do is to use the Islam and the Shia narrative outside of Iran on their proxies, and cool it down at home and focus on nationalism at home. And there are some very clever people that are realizing that in Iran, and they're talking about Kurosh, and they're talking about we have religious, Ali, I can't believe this. We have these Shia religious imams that they're not saying Islam much anymore. They're talking about Iran. They're talking about ancient Persian culture. And holy fuck, I can't believe, like, this is something the anti-religious people you only used to refer to in Iran. But the fact that now the religious authority is using, like, for example, there's missiles, right? The missile, Iran is building new missiles. They're innovating. They're coming up with new technology, and they're not naming them Islamic names. They're not naming them like Hussein's sword or shit like that. They're giving them old Persian names.
Like Ardashir?
Yeah, they call Arash, like Seymour and shit like that. Like, holy fuck, these people are realizing they're really clever. If you want to make the Iranian people proud about your newfound power, you play a different narrative with them. Yes. Anyways,
this is actually, we have a super chat.
Yeah.
And actually, what you just said there at the end is kind of related to this. Yeah. This is from Nusantara Rising. It's from Indonesia.
Thank you.
Indonesia. We have yet to have somebody from Indonesia on the show.
Yes.
So, Nusantara, if you're just, please email us and let's see if you're willing to come on. We would love to talk about what's going on. There's a lot of news coming out of Indonesia anyway. So they're saying, do you guys watch Caspian Report on YouTube? Their video on how a war would unfold from small skirmishes. Also, that secular Iranians will support the government. And then they're also saying, also, have you seen Indonesia's new laws? So, we'll get into that in a bit. But yes, Caspian Report, I actually hadn't heard of them, but I did just look them up. And I see that they're talking about how over here miscalculation, misinterpretation, and bad judgment can conspire to turn a minor clash into a full-blown fight.
Yeah,
and I think Armin was talking about that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. And some people are banking on that, right?
Yeah, and then the second part of what you're saying, Nusantara, about that the secular Iranians will support the government, and that's also what Armin was talking about. When they use the nationalism rhetoric, like, when they're talking about when they want to get the Arabs on their side, they're going to use all of the stuff about Israel and the Jews and support Hamas and all of that. When they want to rile up domestic support among Iranians, then that religious rhetoric, they know it doesn't work very much anymore. So they're naming their missiles after, older, like pre-Islamic
Right.
Persian sort of heritage type
But
figures. And they're also, and yes, they will, if something like this happens. One of the things with the secular Iranians is that they will stand behind the government if there is a foreign threat.
well, no, I mean
This
not
is
all of them. Again,
no,
nothing,
not all of them, but
nothing that we're saying is unanimous. When it comes to when I'm saying some religious authorities, they're realizing that they need to play the nationalism narratives rather than religious ones. That doesn't mean that this is all across the board. They are competing with other sources of influence that really want more religious to go out and tell. Like we have actually had the rise of arrest of women. Just recently, a whole bunch of restaurants was shut down in Tehran because they were un-Islamic, and this is the mistake that some people are making in Iran. Like so, this is again nothing that happens in Iran. There's 100% agreement in it. So there's competition between strategies, and the people that are really. What I'm saying is not that every single religious authority is doing it, but there's a competition between them, and I think the ones that are pushing harder with their Islam enforcement, they are making a big mistake, and they are unfortunately for Iran, unfortunately for us, they are still very powerful, and by doing that, they're going to lose a lot of support internally, and that's the only way I think you could defeat the Islamic Republic of Iran,
so
is by pushing dissent internally. There's nothing from outside that I think that could put that is a weakness from Iran. Iran's weakness is from within. But, go on, sir.
No, actually have a question for you, kind of regarding this, because there is confusion. Like what you're talking about is actually very complicated, and I think the reason it sounds that way is because it actually is very complicated, the way that people in Iran work. So when Iraq was attacked, right, when the U.S. went into Iraq, and Bush said, "Okay, mission accomplished," and Donald Rumsfeld said we'd be greeted as liberators, and then people thought, "Oh, we got rid of Saddam. All the Iraqis hated Saddam. They're going to love the Americans." But that didn't happen. Right? There was a huge insurgency against the Americans, and it turned out it was more complicated than that. That no, they did not like Saddam, but they were very happy he was gone. But that did not mean that they were totally pro-American. Now with Iran, it kind of feels very similar. That even though there is this sort of domestic antipathy towards the hardliners, right, and a lot of, especially the young people, and 70% of the population is under the age of 30. These young people are not fans of the hardliners. The majority of them, some of them are, but the majority of them are not. But if one of the strategies that, for example, the Obama administration had in 2009 when the Green Revolution happened, right, all those protests were happening, that people wanted Obama to come out and overtly say, yes, we are with the protesters. But his advisors warned him, they're like, Iran is kind of complicated. If you do that, then what will happen is that they're all going to, once they find out that the protesters have American support, then that is going to turn a lot of people in Iran against the protesters, and it'll decrease their effect because even though they don't like their own hardliners, they don't like the U.S. either, and they don't trust them. So that will do. Go on. That's a question. So, and I think what Nusantara is saying about here that the secular Iranians will support the government is that sort of a similar kind of thing, that if there is even the secular Iranians may support the government if there is an outside thing with the U.S. because they hate the U.S. more than
Before I answer that, we had the second super chat by Nilfar.
So, we did?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do that.
I'm going to answer your question.
Let me update that. Oh, Nilafar, thank you very much. So Nilafar is just saying support for secular jihadists. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that.
So the thing is that we have examples for everything when it comes to when you talk about Iranian people. We have people that they want United States to attack Iran.
Right.
And they think that no matter how much damage United States causes in Iran, it's worth it, because they say life under the mullahs are so hard and so bad that even if United States drops a nuke and Iran, whatever the cost to that is going to be, eventually it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth getting out of the mullahs regime. Right?
Yeah, but how many people think that?
Well, let me go through the list, okay? So we have a lot of people that think that. They're like, United States, please attack, come save us, we're tired, we need help, right? We have some other people that are very, very anti-Islamic Republic of Iran, very much against the mullah. They're tired living under them, but they say, we don't want a war. We've seen what the war does to a country. We've seen what happened to Iraq. We've seen what happened to Libya. We've seen what happened to Syria. And even though the mullahs are horrible and we don't want to live under them, and we don't want to go through a war, at least we have lives right now. At least we have a job. We're paying for our food. It's whatever the situation is better than going through 10 years of civil war if you remove this government. So we have that as well, right? We have other people that are we have many people that support this government. They're religious and they support this government, and they think this government is the chosen by God to represent Imam Mahdi on earth. So obviously they would support this government, but for religious reasons and other ideological, political and religious reasons, right? So that's number 3. We have people that in Iran that are not religious, and in fact they're anti-religious, but they support this government. And the reason why they support
how does that work?
Okay, so they support this government and they like this government because they are very obsessed with Iran being strong, and Iran they're proud of Iran's might. They want Iran to be like an empire, like it used to be. And they hate the Islamic aspect of this government, but the fact that this government is kicking ass right now, they kind of can't. They want to find an excuse to be proud of that. They see this as the closest thing that they are getting to bringing back the Persian Empire. I mean, if you notice that everywhere that Shia Islam is right now, is exactly where the Persian Empire used to be before Islam, right? So they think that all of these places belongs to Iran. They think like Lebanon is not an Arab country. Lebanon is part of Iran, greater Iran. Because if you look at the map of the Persian Empire before it got cut into pieces, all of these were part of Iran. They think Syria is part of Iran. Iraq is not Iraq. Iraq is part of greater Iran, right? And they're like, yeah, these are all ours. And for how many years we've lost that? For more than 1,400 years, we have lost all these to the Arabs. And all of a sudden, this government is the fact that these are Iran's proxies is the closest thing we could get to making these countries at least close to being part of Iran, right? And they like it, and they like the fact that Iran is, okay, so for example, I follow these people, and they say that they tell people like me that are anti-Islam, but also anti-Islamic Republic of Iran. They say that if you watch the video, and they are anti-Islam as well, they hate Islam, but they say that if you watch the video of Iran shooting down that drone, what was that? The U.S. drone. When you watch that footage, and if you did not feel any pride from that, if you didn't tear up from Iran showing its might to the world, you have to go talk to your mother, because you're probably not Iranian. Because you probably they say you have to go talk to your mom, because your mom probably slept with somebody that was not Iranian. You don't have Iranian DNA in you. If you didn't watch that video and you didn't feel proud of that, then you're a bastard. You're not purely. You cannot. They say that even people that pretend to be anti the Iranian government, they say that the Aryan blood probably there's some pride that you cannot fight against. That even every Iranian probably secretly felt some pride when that happened, right? When they took over the British ship, when they do all of these things and there's no pushback against them. They say that you're either they say there's only three options. You're feeling pride and you're saying to the world that you're feeling pride. You're feeling pride, but you're hiding it because you're because you've been brainwashed by Western media that you have to be against this government, so you're hiding it, even though you secretly wish you could say that you're so proud of your country. Or the only other option is that you're not pure. That your mother cheated on your dad somehow. Those are the only three options. So that's but the thing is that you ask me how many these people are out there, right? So I know that the number of people that are supporting this government, and they're religious, and they're supporting it because they're ideologically, religiously are aligned with this government, is very high, but it's much less than before, right? So compared to the 40 years ago, since the Islamic Revolution of Iran, there used to be a lot more of these people. These are the people that they managed to defend Iran against Iraq. Even though Iraq was supported by United States and Saudi Arabia in the 8-year war between Iran and Iraq, nobody thought that Iran would be able to survive that war. They managed to survive that war because they managed to bring millions of volunteers to fight Iraq. So that was that Iran had that much support closely after the revolution. It doesn't have anything close to that right now. But still, it's still a lot. It's still at least 10 million people. At least 10 million people, right? But it's hard. This is just guess because we don't have any statistics for that. So that's a number that is becoming less and less, but still it's a huge, big number. For the number of people that say that, okay, fuck it, come, please bomb us, please save us from mullahs. That's
what I want to know.
That is not a big number. That is not a big number. But it's the loudest number on social media. Okay, on Western platforms, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Telegram, on Facebook, they are the loudest ones, and they give an impression to foreigners that they are the majority. They are not the majority, and in fact, their numbers start getting cut a lot after the consequences, after people started seeing what happened to Libya and Syria, because people are like, okay, we don't want any of that. I remember when United States first attacked Iraq, I was in school. I remember kids cheering United States in Iran, and they were cheering. Their chant was like, "We are next, we are next." Like they were hoping that United States. This was my entire school. All the kids in the school were chanting that they were hoping for United States to attack Iran next after Saddam. They were they were saying they liberated Iraq, come liberate us next. But then after 10 years of civil war, of chaos in Iraq, I bet you at least 90% of those kids are not chanting that anymore, right? So that number is still a lot, but less than before. And these are people that will shame. These are the Iranians that will go. If you say that toppling Iran's government right now is not realistic, these are the Iranians that will go after you and will call you a puppet of. I've been accused of being the Islamic Republic's puppet many times, just because I didn't agree. These are people that will try to boycott your shows. They'll try to warn everybody about you. You know how much shit I got recently? All the stuff that I had to deal with when it comes to saying controversial stuff, right, on Twitter, is nothing compared to the number of Iranians that are after me because I'm thinking that toppling Iran's government right now is not realistic. Like, I deal with more controversy from my Persian followers than my English-speaking followers. People Photoshop my picture next to Khamenei as if I'm like embracing him because they think I must be his agent because I'm arguing that it's not realistic for this government to fall right now, right? So that's the other group. So again, it's really hard to know what percentage of the population they are, but I know their arguments are getting weaker and weaker. A smaller percentage of the population, but a growing percentage, is the last one that I mentioned. The people that are not religious, that are anti-Islamic but support the government. They are a minority, but they're a fast-growing minority. They are Neo-Zoroastrians. They are the people that they think that Shia Islam is a secret, hidden version of Zoroastrianism, and this government is basically a defender of this Zoroastrian values in a secret way.
No, is that why is this group the reason that they're? I mean, the fact that they're growing fast, is this one of the reasons that Iran is amping up its sort of nationalist rhetoric?
They're trying to appeal to these people because they're trying to. This is when I realized that the Khamenei himself is trying to appeal to them. When he came out and in one of his speeches, Khamenei himself, the supreme religious leader of Iran, he said, "This is not about Islam. This is about whether you're Iranian or not." And I was like, "Holy fuck! I can't believe Khamenei said that." Khamenei himself said, "This is not about Islam." That if you're Iran, if he said this is not about Islam, any Iranian will feel that would be on our side. So not only he said this is not about Islam. When he said this is about being Iranian, he openly acknowledged that there's a lot of Iranians that are not pro-Islamic.
That's what's so fast. That's actually a huge thing. I mean, it's obviously shitty that they're basically taking let's not milk the whole religious thing as the opiate of the masses, but let's just start using nationalism for it. I mean, that kind of sucks, but still, it's very interesting. A place like Iran with the Vilayat al-Faqih and Khamenei, Khamenei, they're actually saying that they're actually downplaying the religious element in favor of nationalism. That's something I didn't know.
Yeah,
so
it's very clever.
It's very, very interesting. So anyway, we're just going to go to, we have about, let's go into the patron questions now.
Okay.
Right. So the first one is from Robert Roberts. And I said, patron questions can be about any topic.
Yeah.
Even though most of them will probably be about this. Robert Roberts wants to know, did Armin find out if the aliens at Area 51 were Yahweh and Allah back in the day? And Hotep, what is that about? What's with you in Area 51? Why is everyone talking about it?
I don't. Well, I mean, I think the raid was today. The raid of Area 51 was today. Is that why they're bringing it up? I don't know.
I haven't been following the Area 51 thing, actually.
Okay, I think the raid was today. I wonder if anyone got shot.
Yeah, Mars and Blonde Infidel are saying, nice haircut, Ali. Thank you very much. We're being told we look pretty. We're getting compliments on our looks.
Nice.
That's probably your looks. I was like, we're kind of past that prime now.
You look badass. I like your haircut.
With the haircut, I just need a swastika in the side of my head. It'll be good. Yeah, well, that's going to really help.
Yeah.
Because I'm already associating with you. I was like, why are you associating with Armin?
By the way, guys...
Everybody thinks you're a Nazi.
Everybody?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
No, not everybody.
Okay.
But, guys, Armin's not a Nazi, I don't think.
Thank you.
At least, yeah. Well, we'll see.
We'll
see how that plays out.
All right, next question.
Okay, so what's the point of going to Amsterdam now that pot's legal in the Great White North?
I had truffles. That's not legal here. I had mushrooms.
You had mushrooms. I didn't do anything there. I think I took a couple of hits off a joint.
You should have. That was.
I don't handle it well, and I was only there for a few days. Like, and you were there for much longer. So I didn't have that. I was jet lagged, and I was on a very sort of wall-to-wall schedule, and I had to get out of there.
I have to actually tell the story of me and we the night that we all decided to go get high with all the ex-Muslims. I should tell you the story.
The problem with you is like when you get high, you go to your hotel room and you spend time solo, and then you either fall asleep or I don't know what you do. And then you're like, I didn't get to hang out with you. I mean, of course you didn't.
But the reason why I had to do that is interesting. But I have to tell that story to everybody. But that was a very, ex-Muslims getting high together, that was a very interesting experience. I was with Mimsy, with Vidu, with Harris Sultan, with Leon, and Rana Ahmad. We all got, high together. It was very interesting. I know,
and then you walked into the panel, and I was sitting there, and that was really funny because you guys all walked in single file. it looked like you were being marched into like one of the fucking ovens in the.
Yeah,
it was.
actually, we should tell that.
Yeah, you had this really guilty expression that we're walking into the paddle. It's going on. We're late, and you all looked. It was so obvious you guys were all fucking baked.
Okay, that whole night was very interesting. We'll tell that story, what happened that night to everybody. But it was crazy. But I think I told you. Did I tell you why I had to flush down some space cake down the toilet?
No, you didn't.
I had to flush down space. I bought some weed brownies for Sarah Haider and Muhammad Sayed, but I had to flush them down the toilet. But I'll tell you the story for why I had to do that another time. Another time, yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Are you sure? Did Sarah and Muhammad want you to say that on the air? I don't know.
Well, I didn't say they. No, I didn't say they.
You bought it for them without the knowledge.
No, they didn't ask me. I bought it for them, and I was holding on to it. I didn't say they used it or not, but they didn't because I had to flush them down the toilet. So I had to apologize to them. But again, that's another story for another time.
Yeah, Sarah just messaged me. She's off the after the Bill Maher thing. Yeah. I think she's feeling really bad. I'll check that in a bit.
Yeah, let her know she was great.
Yeah, I did.
I haven't watched it yet. I just assumed she was great, so which is probably a safe bet.
Yeah. So, RPG Gamer guy is saying, "Wait, how the hell can you hate Jews and be a Zionist? Did I miss something?" Well, I think you probably did. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Yes, I'll show
the
you.
Next
I'll show
episode.
You how it's done because apparently I'm a Zionist that hates Jews.
Yeah. So we're going to actually put Armin in the hot seat for the next episode. We're going to put Armin in the hot seat, and I'm going to talk about all of the accusations and all of the things that he said.
Right.
That have really, really triggered people.
If you say everything, okay. Here's a. We're gonna lose.
I'm making a collection.
Okay.
I'm saying I'm going to bring up shit that you probably even forgot that you ever said.
Shit.
So it's
we're
going to
lose some patrons, by the way, because if you bring up every controversial thing that I ever said, a lot of patrons are going to be like, "Wait, Armin said that," so we're going to lose some patrons. But it's fine. We're going to lose some patrons. So if you
all you got to say is just say that I'm an atheist. I hate everybody.
No, it's fine. That's okay. So since we're going to lose some patrons next week. When Ali brings up all this stuff, please become a patron today if you're not yet already to make up for the patrons that we're about to lose next week. Please become a patron today. Please, thank you. Link in the description.
Okay. Yeah, no, we're not going to lose our patrons.
We're going to lose a couple. It's fine though.
Yeah. Okay. So look for another one. Ed Amen is saying Ali o mere chand ka tukra. That means piece of my moon. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's an endearing thing in Urdu. So thank you, Ed, and right back at you. Now, let's go on. They're taking two now. Beej is around. A whole bunch of people around.
Chris asked a few questions.
He did. That's what I'm trying to get to. Jim is talking about how I brought in a Buddha judge talking point. I actually did. That was when I was saying that, when the war started, and then now people are of voting age, the people who were born when the Afghanistan war started, are now at voting. But actually, Buttigieg made a different point. He said that they can now go and fight. I think that's what he says. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But
we got a super chat, James.
Oh, we did? Okay, I'm gonna have to scroll all the way down. Can you read it?
You'll say that. James,
yeah,
thank
read
you so
it now.
much for the super chat, $10 super chat. He's saying, I don't have a question, but here's some money because you guys are awesome. Ah, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I love James. Anyway, so there's a couple of people who've actually asked this, and I was noticing this in the live chat. Can anyone verify the airstrike on Iran by Israel and Saudi Arabia? So apparently there's this thing going around that Israel and Saudi Arabia got together and did an airstrike on Iran. But
wait,
I have been looking.
When is that happening?
Well, if that happened in this last hour, that's amazing. But I don't think it happened. So I'm sorry. Right now, I can't find anything anywhere that says it happened. I've even been looking on Twitter and stuff the whole time we're talking.
If it happened, it happened right now. If it has happened. No, usually if something happened, I would get something on my feed by now.
Yeah, no, I don't think it is. It has happened. So
we'll see.
Yeah, and then so Nusantara, the one thing that Nusantara was saying is so I don't know if you are what your gender is, so that's why I'm using the pronoun they, which I find a lot easier to do. But they're saying R.I.P. my country, Indonesia, and asking about the recent Indonesian laws. So I don't know if you know about this, Armin, but what they did was they're considering banning premarital sex. They're going to make that a criminal offense.
What?
Sex outside marriage is going to become a criminal offense in Indonesia.
In one province or the entire country?
Apparently in the entire country. That's what I've been reading.
What the
but
hell?
what is interesting, I saw this mindless tweet that Yasmin Mohammed quoted, and she was like, what the hell is this tweet? That some person tweeted that, guys, it's worth noting that this will only be applied to, this is not going to be a law that will apply to expats or people coming overseas.
So that's great then.
It's perfect, because that's the only thing they fucking...
Who cares about the Indonesian people?
This is when this is why I say when people say white privilege isn't real, it absolutely is. Just because the SJWs have take it to a fucking extreme doesn't mean that there's no basis to it. That's the kind of things that they say. Okay, so Indonesia, Key Wise is saying, yes, Indonesians are becoming more Wahhabi due to the Saudi money, building madrasas, brainwashing them. Yeah, this is an unfortunate thing. There is this sort of fundamentalist turn in Indonesia, in Turkey, and these were countries that were relatively open about these things. I don't know yet. I feel like we're in the middle of it, so I don't know if this is a permanent change that's going that way, or if it's something that is just a backlash, a response to the fact that
this is another reason. This is another reason why you don't reform Islam. You get rid of Islam, because as long as you have Islam, you're going to get at some point. How many countries have to experiment with this for people to figure it out? Iran still had Islam, and it was secular at some point. But because you have Islam, it will eventually come back at you and bite you in the ass. So, same thing happened in Turkey. Same thing in Malaysia. People are like, oh, look, Malaysia. Islam is reform, it's not that bad. Oh, look at Malaysia now. Look at Indonesia now. If you have a disease, you don't reform the disease, you eradicate the disease. But go on.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing that I feel like, do you think that there are any, apart from Majid really, can you think of any sort of reformer types who are consistent or who have any sway?
Wait, influence? I can't think of a single one. What are you talking about? Majid himself is not influential when it comes to reform. He's influential in other things, okay? Which are, and the good things he's doing, right? So Majid is very good, influential when it comes to fighting for free speech, secularism, and all that, which is great. But when it comes to reform, even Majid is not even influential. How many people?
No, but he would say that the secularism thing goes under reform. But I'm just talking about overall, just the consistency of it, because there are. I know Tariq Fatah has gone full he's just trying really, really hard to be Hindu nowadays. So there's that, and then there's I love Raheel Raza. I mean, I met her recently, just a couple of months ago, at an event for a blasphemy law event here in Toronto. So I really like her as well, but I feel like the reformers tend to have an audience with people that, with conservatives generally, they tend to lean conservative, and those people would have been with them anyway. I don't know how much of an outreach there is. You have the Asra Nomani was kind of one of them, but you know what happened with her. I haven't heard from her in ages. So I don't know. I really think that over time, your thesis has really borne itself out in a really good way. I mean, you have the attention really is on people like Zayn Malik saying, "I don't identify as a Muslim anymore." Like a celebrity, celebrities coming out saying that they're not Muslim anymore.
But this is not a new thing. What I'm saying is people are realizing that now. But I'm saying this experiment has been done before in Iran, in Turkey, in Indonesia, and Malaysia. This is something that we've seen. We're not just guessing these things. But anyways, let's go finish the questions.
Okay. No, I thought that was a good topic.
Yeah.
So, can Saudis convince Egypt to intervene in Yemen?
No.
Oh my God, my head's gonna explode, Armin.
No, I mean
too many fucking sides.
No, Egypt is already. Egypt is started I mean, at the beginning of this whole coalition that Saudi Arabia was trying to build, as if it was the head of the Sunni world, like it's the big brother, and all these other Sunni countries are like under Saudi Arabia. It started off looking like that, and they started off by like, look, Qatar is the bad boy, and we're gonna show Qatar who's the boss. Saudi Arabia is the boss, and they're gonna come back to us. And when Qatar didn't do that, and they got even closer to Iran and benefited from not doing that, the whole authority of Saudi Arabia got questioned. And a lot of these other countries like United Arab Emirates and Egypt that are supposed to be under Saudi Arabia's wing, they kind of like always like playing like, yeah, Saudi Arabia, we're back, have your back. But recently, United Arab Emirates went and just started talking to Iran and pulled out of Yemen, and Egypt as well. They would, what was this gathering they were supposed to have against Iran, right? And Egypt was Egypt took a back seat. It was like, yeah, guys, I'm sorry, but I'm checking out of this, because like Saudi Arabia is so frustrated because they're so terrified of Iran, and it was supposed to be, they were all supposed to be united against Iran, and more members of this coalition are realizing that, you know, Iran is a little bit too powerful for us to be completely against. We can't really lead the charge against them. So Saudi Arabia is kind of like, people are like stepping back slowly, and Saudi Arabia is left without any allies. So they're scared, right? Saudi Arabia is really scared right now. And I don't think, and nobody, I think United Arab Emirates was even more in line with Saudi Arabia than Egypt. And even they now pulled out of Yemen and are speaking to Iran. And so what are, like, yeah, I think Saudi Arabia...
No, but the United Arab Emirates is also part of the coalition that Trump is trying to build now.
But I'm just saying Saudi Arabia is losing allies, and it's very interesting because the only country that is staying with Saudi Arabia against Iran is Israel, right? So
yeah, I know.
This is why.
Oh God, what a fucking world! This is so. Who would? I mean, okay, we had a bit of an idea, but man, growing up there, I never would have thought.
Right.
It's amazing. Anyway. Yeah, things change. When things change, they change really fast.
Yeah.
Like, how old were you when the Soviet Union fell? You were a kid then, right?
Yeah.
1989?
Yeah, I was, I think, 4 years old. Yeah. No, wait. 6 years
I was in high school.
Yeah. Oh, really?
When that happened. Well, I was in, like, 9th, 10th grade when that happened, and it was... Like, it was just stunning. It was crazy just growing up hearing about the two superpowers. Since I was a kid, two superpowers, Soviet Union, the U.S., yeah, Cold War, all this shit, and then suddenly, it had just happened so fast.
Right.
It was bizarre, and then the Scorpions did that song "Winds of Change," and then the Berlin Wall came down, and I'm like, I was like, what the? It was so bizarre. When these things happen,
right?
I mean, I'm telling you, like, when they happen so fast.
Right.
Like gay rights, like same-sex marriage. I mean, it's amazing the way that people used to think about it when I grew up.
I wonder what's the next major thing that none of us saw coming. You know what I mean?
I don't know. That's another thing. It's really hard to predict.
Yeah.
I hope it's the ex-Muslim movement. I really do. Yeah. So, by the way, that poll that 1 in 4 Muslims in the United States have left Islam, the one that's on the billboards that Sarah and Muhammad, the ex-Muslims in North America, have been doing. So that statistic actually, that was something that totally jarred me. Now, it's worth mentioning, considering that we're doing this show on this topic, that a lot of those numbers, the 1 in 4, were driven by the huge Persian community in Los Angeles.
Really?
So so a lot of them, they were disproportionately represented among them because they're all fucking atheists, right? They're all heathens. So there you go. Anyway, so Dirty Dancer is asking, Armin, Holocaust Museum fail talk coming? Is there a talk coming?
Holocaust Museum fail?
The Holocaust Memorial, I think they're talking about the one you were...
That's what we're talking about next week, aren't we? Like, isn't that one of the things we're going to
That's one of the things that we're going to talk about.
It was not a fail, by the way. It's not... What do you mean fail? What was it a fail?
Were you even thinking? Did you ever think it would happen when all four of you? It wasn't just you. It was like all four of you just stood there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, people...
You thought that there was going to be some controversy?
Yeah, I thought so.
You'd read about the selfies and everything?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I knew there was a country. I don't mind it. I don't mind it.
Okay.
I don't mind it. I think. I mean, I'll tell you next time what my thought process is about this.
Okay, I think that'll be good. It was a pretty good picture. I liked it.
Yeah, it was a great picture.
Okay, so
it would be more offensive not to post that picture.
Yeah. Now, this is where I asked for the questions. So could you please talk about the riots in Egypt against Sisi? Oh, that's first of all, I don't really know that much about it yet, enough to talk about it in detail.
Yeah, let's have a show. Let's have an Egypt specific show.
Yeah, we could have that, and I think it'd be good to invite a guest from Egypt as well.
We have so many things. We could do a Egypt focused show, a Turkey focused show, an Indonesia focused show, a Malaysia focused show, a Bangladesh.
We should maybe get Omar Makram back on. I mean, he was we met him in Amsterdam, so it was kind of cool. So let's see if he's in touch with that stuff.
We should do a Turkey focused show as well at some point.
Oh, I also wanted to mention that. Remember, we had Mohanad Al Sheikhi, the comedian, my comedian friend from Portland.
Yeah.
Who from Benghazi, Libya.
Yeah.
Like he's on refugee status. So he ended up going on Conan a couple of weeks ago.
Oh.
Right, Conan O'Brien. He did a great 5-minute set. So you guys should look it up. Previous guest on Secular Jihadists.
Yeah.
And then he ended with a really good story. And now he just got a job at Full Frontal. He's going to be working at Full Frontal with Samantha Bee. So he's moving to New York.
That's
so
amazing.
that gets,
he's a patron.
Yeah.
He's a patron. He's a supporter of the show.
Oh, he is? Yeah, he's moving up fast. And he's doing amazing. Like, it's just... so congrats to him.
He's a patron. He became a patron of the show when he was still in financially unstable. So that was very kind of him. Now he's making money and everything, but he started supporting us even when it was difficult to support us.
He's been
Which
doing
don't do
amazing,
that, by the way, guys. We don't anybody. If any of you are financially supporting us, but it's difficult to financially support us, you don't need to do that. You can support us by sharing the show, telling your friends, giving us a 5-star rating on iTunes. There are other ways to support us. Only support us financially if it's very, very easy for you to support us financially.
Others, really, honestly, just go to iTunes, give us a 5-star rating. That is the most important thing you can do.
But if it is easy for you to support us financially, do support us financially. But I'm just saying.
In fact, everybody who's here, if you could, I know it's really late for some of you, but if you're here anyway, if you could go to iTunes and just give us a nice rating now, that'd be fucking amazing.
Yeah, please do that. Go to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating.
So Mars has a question. I feel like there's a lot hinging on the upcoming 2020 election, but I'm pessimistic about a liberal candidate being able to unseat Trump. What are your thoughts as to where this can go? So I want to take this because I've been following this really, really closely. I think that the number one, 2016, first of all, is not 2020. You know, the leftist rise and the Bernie Sanders and all that stuff that was happening all over the world, that's kind of gone down. People want to play it safe right now, especially with the recent rise with the right. I think that in 2016, Trump lost because liberals just thought Hillary was going to win. All the polls said 90% chance, this and that. They just stayed home because they didn't like her. They stayed home. They didn't come out. And then when he won, they freaked out. Now they have a fire under their asses. He still lost by 3 million votes, and he won by around 70 or 80,000 votes in the Rust Belt states. The Rust Belt states swept, the Democrats swept it in the 2018 midterms. So chances are that this is going to be a pretty easy win for whatever Democratic candidate. What's crazy is Joe Biden, for instance, he's beating, according to consistently in polls, he's beating Trump in Texas and Arizona. That's actually unprecedented, even this early. But the Democrats and the liberals are very, very good at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
Right.
They really are. And that's a huge risk. But I think that it's going to go Democratic. If it doesn't, this is what the problem is. You're looking at potentially a 7-2 majority, conservative majority Supreme Court in the U.S. That means we had Andrew Seidel on here. That means the separation of religion and state, church and state, which people like Brett Kavanaugh think is a false separation, a false wall between church and state. That means that goes. 7-2 conservative majority. That means Roe v. Wade, women's rights, a lot of these things will be rolled back. for ages because there's no term limit. So there's a lot that's hinging on it.
Right.
I think everybody should be involved in this. I know that people don't love the liberals right now, but the other side is this is an international crisis. It's a huge thing. And I really feel like if you can engage, you should go out and engage. Don't do the purity test. Don't do, okay, you have to be completely on my side on this or completely centrist. We have to get this done wherever you are. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about it right now. I don't want to talk too much.
I hope it's Bernie, to be honest. I'm a free market capitalist, but I think when it comes to if you're trying to think who's going to reduce misery more than anyone else, I think it would be Bernie, because whatever impact any of these people have on the U.S., it's much smaller than the impact on the number of lives that when it comes to like Yemen, right? Like
you're right.
Because like Obama and Trump are both responsible for causing the world's greatest humanitarian crisis in our lifetime in Yemen. Okay, they aided that. And I think like if you're just talking about the highest, who's going to, it was only Bernie among all these people that was always against this. Before, like he was talking about pulling out of Yemen before anyone else, and he was talking about it when not just because of cost to the United States, but also because of the human misery that it's causing, right? And I think the number of people that are suffering outside of the United States because of the policies of Obama and Trump is much higher than the number of people that are suffering from Trump's policies inside the United States, right? So just from a utilitarian perspective, even if I disagree with Bernie's economic policies, that's a very small thing compared to his foreign policies and how many people that's going to impact. And I think given how consistent he has been on that, and how reliable it is for us to trust that he's going to, like with these other people, I have no idea what the fuck they're going to do, right? With Elizabeth Warren, Biden, or Trump, they might say something, and once they get elected, I have no idea what the fuck they're going to do. They're going, all of them are not trustworthy. I think Bernie is the one. I think Bernie is the only one that you could trust. That okay, this guy is not going to support the war in Yemen. Okay, this guy for sure is going to pull out. He's not going to sell any weapons to any motherfuckers that dropping bomb on innocent people, and he's going to pull out of that. I think that's why I support. I mean, we're Canadians, so a lot of Americans are going to say like, "What the fuck, you guys have no right to say anything about this."
Oh no, we do.
But I'm going to say, like, come stop me.
I was like, I'll tell you something. In the 2008 election, I actually happened to vote. I was talking to voters. I got 3 people who weren't going to vote in Pennsylvania to go out and vote for me. So, and that was a swing state. Right. So I got 3 people out to do this. So you can do it thanks to the Electoral College. Yeah. People outside have a thing. But one point that you brought up is a really good one. That domestically, the U.S. president is actually notoriously weak. Because there's so many checks and balances. There's the Supreme Court, there's Congress.
Other than the judges that they pick, that's a long lasting.
That's something that they do. But even that has to go through congressional approval and the process and everything like that. But when it comes to foreign policy, they have free reign. Right. That's where they have their power. So by the way,
Chris, I disagree with Chris saying I wish AOC was old enough to run. I really don't like AOC. I know, Ali, you like her. I really don't like her. I really think that. I
agree with her on very little, I think when I look at somebody, I like her in the way that I like Trump, in the sense that she really understands the American electorate.
Oh,
she really understands the kind of.
She has very limited understanding of how the economy works, and she's mixing identity politics where in places that I didn't even think that you could bring identity politics into. Like
I do like her. I think she's kind of spunky. I don't agree with stuff. What's really interesting is the New York Times.
I don't like her policies. Are you talking about her personality? That's a different thing.
There's some of her like. Okay, so recently the New York Times had this thing where she is actually trying to distance herself now, because she's been there for 9 months and she's trying to distance herself, and she started endorsing moderates, which is really, really interesting. But I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But as far as the election thing goes, like my choice is I like Biden. And I'm getting a lot of crap for that.
What? You like Biden?
Yeah.
Why would you like Biden?
I like Biden, but I am perfectly fine with the morning after Trump got elected. I wrote an article about why Elizabeth Warren would be the best candidate. So I like Biden. I'm fine with Biden, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie, Andrew Yang. I don't think is going to make it, but I like him a lot.
Yeah, I like him. But
Yeah. So
Bernie,
and I hope he gets a cabinet position.
I would be honestly, if I was a U.S. citizen, I would be a single issue voter. I would vote for the person that is the most likely
with Yemen,
and that would be Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, no. For me, I have multiple issues that I would if I was a U.S. thing. The people that I don't like, even though none of them are as bad as Trump, but I mean the people who I don't really like a whole lot. Kamala Harris, when she came out, I really liked her. But honestly, she's just very, very inauthentic seeming. I feel like she's too much of a panderer. And the other guy, Julian Castro, I just don't like that guy. Yeah. Like I feel like he's just snarky and he seems like he's very passive aggressive.
Yeah.
So not a huge fan. Anyway, that's that. We should have an episode on the U.S. elections. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, it would be fun.
Yeah.
All right. So let's wrap it up.
Yeah, let's do one more question, guys. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to your question, and I apologize. But here's so RPG Gamer Guy. If there was a war between nations that devolved into a full-on world war, how do you think it would play out? Which countries would come out on top? Will nukes be involved? Well, if there is a world war, this is going to be
China will
so much fun.
China will come on top. So United States will win every single battle, but it will come out of it weaker, right? Mm-hmm. And the countries that manage to somehow stay out of it will come out of it winning. And I think China and India, I think if there is ever a giant war, it's just going to help. I mean, United States power around the world is decreasing, and that would just speed it up. That would just speed up. Just like when, the British Empire, right? The last nail in that coffin was, after what was the Suez Canal thing, right? I mean, the more you spread yourself thin, the faster you're going to end your empire. The faster your citizens are going to lose their appetite for supporting your empire building activities, right? And I think a giant war is just going to speed up that process for the United States. And right now, the current trend is that tomorrow's superpowers are China and India, and it's just going to push everything towards that even faster.
Mm-hmm. I think we are going towards a multipolar world. But I still think that the U.S. is way, way beyond. Mostly, China's got a very, very strong economy. Brazil, India, all of these other countries are coming up. But I still think that overall, when it comes to not only like in all these wars and all these empires, the one thing that's really common, that's always been common, is an ideology. So the Soviet Union had an ideological core that defined it. The British Empire had, industrialization. They had their own sort of ideological core. The U.S. had its ideological core and its constitution, and being a nation of immigrants and innovation and all that. So I think that in that sense, it's still miles above as far as the countries go.
Of course, still it is, but I'm just talking about trends. The
direction. But it will be. It will come out weaker than it was before. Obviously, at the hotspots, I don't think they'll be European centric like they were in the First World War. It's going to be. I mean, there's going to be the Iran and Saudi Arabia proxy war element. I mean, that's probably going to be the nexus of where it comes from. Israel's going to be involved. Syria's going to be involved. And then the sides will be, you'll have the Russia, India, and China. That'll be sort of one alliance. India is kind of interesting because I don't really know. I know that they're having some friction with the U.S. now, which they didn't have before. And so it's kind of an interesting thing that's happening with India, because India's the world's largest democracy. The U.S. is the world's oldest democracy, but there is increasing friction. They obviously don't like this whole thing about negotiating with the Taliban and all of that. I think the way that the powers are going to play out and which sides are going to be on, it will be interesting. But the nexus is going to be very different than it was in the last couple of wars.
The interesting thing is that both tomorrow's superpower, which is going to be, I think, India and China, they both are much more aggressively anti-Muslim than United States as a superpower. So I wonder how that's going to play out in the Islamic world. We got a super chat. You want to read that?
We got a super chat, so we're going to close off with this. James Lowerman, thank you so much. By the way, I love you, man. I always follow all the stuff that you write, so it's really I'm really glad that you're on here. He's saying thanks for the show. Really enjoyed it. Gave you a review on iTunes. Yes. Love you.
Thank you, guys.
So yeah, to all of you guys, just if you can't, more than the money or anything, just give us a review on iTunes. It helps us come up in the ratings, and then people see it. Future guests, we have David Silverman coming back on. So if a lot of you missed it, Armin Navabi did an interview with David Silverman where he has come out with his side of the. As some of you know, that he was accused of sexual abuse, and he's come out and he tells his own side of the story in excruciating detail to Armin Navabi. Armin got the exclusive interview on the Atheist Republic channel, so do check that out. When he comes on with us, he's not really going to be talking about the allegations as much. He's going to be talking more about his future plans in terms of how he wants to make his comeback and become the firebrand atheist he was in the community. And he's also suing his accusers for false allegations, for defamation.
You want to mention who because it's open now, it's out. You want to tell people who he's suing?
Yeah, it's should we? Well, you mentioned it. So yeah, I don't know the name of the first girl, the Bros, but the second one is it's Beth Presswood. She's the ex-wife of Matt Dillahunty. So it's to me it's just a sad situation because I absolutely love Matt Dillahunty, and I really I love Dave Silverman too. And it's just a very unfortunate situation.
So Dave, he's also suing Matt Dillahunty.
Yeah, I know he is.
Yeah.
So because Matt Dillahunty was on the board of the American Atheists. Anyway, so there's he's gonna be coming on. We're going to be talking about his plans. Sarah Hayter, fresh off the Bill Maher show, is going to be coming on. We're going to be talking about ex-Muslims in North America and their new amazing campaign called Awesome Without Allah, where loads and loads of people came out and made incredible videos just coming out and talking about the stories about why they left Islam. And that's going to be pretty amazing. So I'm really looking forward to that. We have... other guests coming on. I want Phil Zuckerman is going to come on at some point, and he's got a new book about morality and religion.
Chris is saying, love you guys, spread the love. Bij is saying, thank you, Armin and Ali and everyone. Faraz is saying, you guys should have Mufti Abu Layth on.
Yes, I have reached out to him. So when I hear back from him, so Mufti Abu Layth is a sort of religious. He's a scholar. He was on Haris Sultan's podcast, and he's also talked to Abdullah Gondal. He's just a hilarious guy. He's a lot of fun. He's religious. We're going to disagree on pretty much everything, but he is a supporter of ex-Muslims, and he wants to see us as part of the whole dialogue on Islam. Even though he's actually quite a learned scholar. He's not just one of those bullshit kind of guys. Like he's really good at what he does, but he's very, very supportive of us, and he's very friendly with Haris and all these guys too. Very funny, makes everybody laugh. So I'm looking forward to having him on. That'd be kind of cool. We've engaged with a lot of Muslims. Some of them have been sort of downers, telling us about how we should be killed. But
those are the most fun. What are you talking about?
Yeah, the most fun. But I think this will be kind of fun because it'll show a different side to an Imam and a Muslim and how we can potentially engage in conversation.
Mike is saying
if he comes on.
Mike is saying, thank you guys. I needed all that info, but I was too lazy to dig it up. Live long and prosper. All right. Okay, so let's
we'll end it on that.
Yeah, let's end it on that. Okay, thank you guys. Go leave a review for us, please. Thank you. And share our YouTube videos. That helps as well. Thank you.
All right, take care, everybody.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Love you guys. Bye.
The secular jihadists have been made possible thanks to the Illuminati and the covert support of Israel and the CIA. That's what we have been told, but we haven't received our checks yet. If you like what we do, please support us. Share the podcast with your friends. Write and tweet us with topic and guest suggestions. Or head over to secularjihadist.com and give $1 or more for exclusive access to live video. Have your questions read and answered on the air and more. Till next time, May the flying spaghetti monster be with you.